Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a whole new way of creating software, one that's empowering a new generation of builders. It's called vibe coding. You know, a user on Reddit really put it perfectly. They called it the democratization of coding. And that's the whole idea, right? It's about putting these powerful tools into more people's hands so you can be the one to direct your own vision. So in this explainer, we're going to cover what vibe coding actually is, how to pick the right tools, the rules you need to follow, some awesome tips from the pros, and maybe most importantly, how to avoid the pitfalls. Okay, let's dive in. So first things first, what exactly is this new approach that has pretty much everyone talking, from absolute beginners to seasoned pros? Well, the term was coined by AI researcher Andrej Karpathy, and it's all about staying in that creative flow. You get to focus on the big picture, what your app should actually do, while the AI handles writing a lot of the nitty-gritty code. And this is where it gets really interesting, because your role completely changes. Think about it. Traditionally, you're the architect and the bricklayer. You're designing the building and then laying every single brick by hand. With vibe coding, you get to be the architect full-time, directing a very, very fast crew of AI builders. It's less about perfect syntax and more about clear direction. Of course, every great journey needs the right tools. And when you're vibe coding, your most important tool, by far, is your AI teammate. So, how do you choose the right one?
The key thing to realize is that this isn't about your resume or your job title. It's all about your goal for a specific project. A professional developer might grab a simple tool for a quick prototype, while a complete newcomer could build something surprisingly complex. It really just depends on the task at hand.
So here's a quick snapshot of the landscape. If you're just trying to get an idea from your brain to a working app as fast as humanly possible, sources say Google AI Studio is the way to go. If your project needs to connect to other services using APIs, users report that Lovable is really strong at that. And then, when you need more power and want fine-grained control, that's when you graduate to an AI-first editor like Cursor. Now, vibe coding isn't just winging it. There are some core principles that really separate getting stuff done from just getting frustrated. The basic workflow is actually this really tight conversational loop. You tell the AI what you want, it writes the code, you run it right away to see what happens, and then you give it feedback to fix it or add more. You just repeat that cycle over and over until it's perfect. And to really master this, you need a little discipline. Always try to start from a template. Keep your chats organized. Test constantly. And please use version control. Think of a tool like Git as the ultimate undo button for your entire project. But the biggest rule of all, never, ever ship code you don't actually understand. Okay, now for the good stuff. Let's get into some tips and tricks straight from the people who are already doing this day in and day out. This one is huge. Your very first prompt is probably the most important thing you'll write. A power user shared this 3-part formula, and they claim you can get 70% of the way to a finished app in that single shot if you nail it. Start with a big idea, then detail the functions, and finish up with the style. So in advanced tools like Cursor, where you can actually pick which AI model you want to use, you have a critical decision to make. And it all boils down to this one question. For the task I'm doing right now, what do I need more of? Control or creativity? Because your answer tells you which model to pick. If you need precise control for a small, well-defined task, a fast, cheaper model like Claude 3.5 Sonnet is your best bet. But if you're throwing a really complex, ambiguous problem at the AI and you need it to get creative with you, that's when you bring out the big guns, like Gemini 1.5 Pro or GPT-4o. Matching the model to the job saves you a ton of time and money. And you have to remember this, you are not locked in. With these tools, you own the code. That means you can start a project in a really simple tool to get your basic idea working, and then export all of that code into a more powerful editor to refine it and add complex features. It's an incredibly flexible workflow. Okay, this all sounds pretty amazing, I know, but it is not magic. And with this new kind of power comes new kinds of risks. So let's talk about the bad vibes and how to steer clear of them. This quote from an article by Zapier just says it all.
If you blindly trust what the AI gives you without understanding why it works, you're basically running your project on wishful thinking and fairy dust. And that's not a great long-term strategy.
All right, this is the absolute #1 non-negotiable rule of security. Never, ever paste sensitive information like passwords or API keys directly into your code or into the AI's chat prompt. Don't do it. Instead, you tell your AI to create a placeholder, a secret, and then you use a secure tool like Superbase to manage and store that sensitive info safely. And beyond security, there are other traps to watch out for. If you rely too much on the AI, you can end up with code that looks okay but is riddled with subtle bugs, or is really inefficient, or just won't be able to scale as your app grows. The whole point is to use these tools to assist your thinking, not to replace it.
So, with all of that, what does this mean for the future of making things? Where is all this going? Well, the consensus seems to be that this is not about replacing developers, not at all. It's about empowerment. It's lowering the barriers so that way more people can bring their ideas to life. And for experts, it's a huge force multiplier that lets them automate the boring stuff and focus on the hard, creative problems. And that leaves us with this pretty fascinating thought to chew on. As we shift from writing precise syntax to guiding these intelligent assistants, maybe the most critical skill for tomorrow's best builders won't just be technical chops, but the ability to communicate an idea with incredible clarity, context, and vision.